Hi everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all well. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to make one of these cute beaded slices of pumpkin pie. So they're 3D, filled in on the bottom and all the sides. So to make one of these you're going to need some orange seed beads, size 11. You will also need only 4 white seed beads for the little cream on the top, and then some for your pastry. So I'm using this pale beige colour for pastry. You'll also need your thread, beading needle, and that's everything. So let's get started. So I've threaded my needle, and the first thing you're going to do, pick up 1 of your beige beads followed by 3 of your orange, like that, and slide those down. Just leave a few inches and hold them there. So now you're going to pick up 2 orange this time, and you're coming out the top here, you're going to go back up through those top 2 oranges, like that. Make sure you keep holding these 2 so they don't fall off the end of the needle, and then pull that through. So you should have this. Now you're going to move down through those 2 oranges that we just added. So we have this, and now we're going to pick up 1 orange followed by 1 beige. And this time you're coming out of here, you're going to go up through the beige and the orange on this side, like that. So that we have this. Now you're going to go back down through that orange and beige on the bottom of the other side that we just added, through those 2. So you're coming out the bottom now. What you're going to do is go up through all 4 on this side and back down through all 4 on this side. So we should have this 2 little neat rows exactly the same, like that. Okay, so we're going to do the same again. It's going to be the same technique all the way along, but you need to keep an eye on where your thread's coming out of. So you're coming out of a beige bead this time, so you're not going to start with 2 orange, otherwise you're going to mess up your pastry along the bottom. So always keep an eye on where you're starting from. So just to keep it the same as last time, I'm going to flip it over so my thread's coming out the top like that. So we're going to do the same again, but we've got to change up the pattern of the colours to make it fit with our design. So I'm going to start with beige orange this time. So 1 beige, 1 orange, and do the same again. So go up through those top 2, back into those 2 we just added. Now we're going to finish with 2 oranges at the bottom. So you take those up through the 2 bottom ones on that next row, and taking thread straight across like that, out of this one straight across, and you're going to go down, back down through those bottom 2 that we just added. So you have this, and now I'm going to go up through this entire row and back down through this one. So we've got 3 rows now, so again I'm going to flip it, so I'm working top to bottom, and same thing again. So for this row you're going to add 2 orange in the same way, and then orange beige at the bottom. So go ahead and do that. So then it should look like this, 4 rows. So we're going to do 2 more rows of that same pattern, so keeping the beige all along the bottom and 3 oranges above. So flip it over. So for this next row you're going to do beige orange followed by orange orange. So then you should have this 5 rows, so flipping it over. This is the last one with this same colour pattern. So you're going to do orange orange and then orange beige, and then I'll show you what to do next. So this is what it should look like. So right now you should have 6 rows, all with the beige beads along the bottom and 3 oranges above them. So make sure it looks like this before you carry on. So for the next row you should be coming out, by the way, at the bottom, coming out of this beige bead, so make sure you're coming out of here, and pick up 2 beige and add them in the same way as before, so I'll flip it over, and then 2 oranges. Okay, so we have this. So the next row is going to be a row of complete beige. So picking up 2 beige for the first group and adding them in the same way as always, and then 2 beige to finish off that row at the bottom. Always sew up the previous row and back down the one you've just added to bring them all together after each row. So now you should have this. You need to do 5 more rows of this same pattern, so 4 beige beads in each row. So do 5 more of those and then I'll show you what to do next. So once you've done that, it should look like this. So now we're going to repeat from here, like backwards. So we're going to do this row again. So you're going to do 2 orange at the top and 2 beige at the bottom. So picking up 2 orange and adding those, and then 2 beige at the bottom. So that we have this. Now we need to add 5 more rows, and it's going to be these rows here where you've got the 3 orange at the top and 1 beige at the bottom. So remember, after every row, just check whether you're coming out of an orange from the top or a beige from the bottom. So if you're coming out of a beige one, then you're going to start with beige orange. If you're coming out of an orange one, you're going to start orange orange. So you need to add 5 more rows, and then I'll show you what to do next. So once you've done that, it should look something like this. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So before you carry on, lay yours flat like this and count your rows and make sure you've got this exact pattern before you carry on. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of 3 orange, 1 beige, and then 1, 2 orange, 2 beige, and then 6 full beige, another 1 of the 2 orange, 2 beige, followed by 5 rows of 3 orange, 1 beige. So this is what you should have before you carry on. So we're going to join it together now. So you're just going to fold it in half for now, like this. So my thread's coming out the top of this side here. I'm going to go down through the first 2 on this one on the other side. So just through the first 2, because we're going to join it together the same way we've joined all the other rows, and back up through the top 2 on this side. So we have this. Now I'm going to sew down through all the beads on this side and back up through all the beads on the other side. Pull it nice and tight, and now you should have this joined together. So we've got these all joined together. So this row that we've joined it to, this one, that's going to be the middle point. That's going to be the point of the thing. So if you hold it like this, you'll see that they go into pairs. So these two, these two, these two, these two, all the way along, and then you've got this one row that doesn't have a partner. So that's the point. And where the pastry starts, you can see where the beige beads are. That's going to be like your sort of shape. So you want to sort of hold it like that. It's not going to stay, but as best as you can, shape it. So you're folding it along the line where it changes from having orange to being all beige. But you're coming out the top of this bead here, you're going to move down just through 1 bead on the next row. So your thread's coming out of this bead here, you're going to go through that gap right there. Take your needle through there. Okay, and now make sure that you hold it so that you've got that middle point bead at the top, to make sure you're going through the right place to keep it level. And then you're going to pick up one and you're going to go through the gap on the other side that matches. So here's that end row, the point, and you're coming out through the gap between the first row and the second row. So you want to go between the first row and the second row on the other side, so through that gap there. Pull that through, and that bead just sits in the middle there. So now you're coming out of here, you're going to move through the gap between the next two rows, so between these two, right there. Take your needle through there, and this time you're going to pick up 2 beads, and you're going to go through the gap on the opposite side that matches. So you're going through the gap between, this time, the second and third row. So that's the first row, second row, third row. So you have this. So turn it on its side again. Now you're going through the gap between the next 2 rows. And this time pick up 3 beads and go through that same gap on the side, the opposite side. So that you have this. And now moving your needle through to the next row, through the gap on the next row, and picking up 4 beads. And so you're going to come through that gap, the next gap on the opposite side. And this is going to be the last one. You're going to go through that last gap because we're at the end of the orange beads then. Okay, and you're going to pick up 5 beads. And take your needle through that very last gap where the orange beads are. You have this, now pull it nice and tight. And it should be a bit like this. Don't worry about this at the back yet. What we need to do is connect this back part to it. So if I turn this on the side, so you're coming out of that gap between this row and this row, you want to move across like we have been doing through the gap between these next 2 rows, so right through the centre of there. Okay, so now we're coming out of the middle here. You're going to go through the first orange bead in this last row. Keep it pulled nice and tight. So you're coming out of this first orange bead. Now you're going to take your needle through the gap right here. So if you hold it like this, you're going through the gap between the second and third row of beige beads. So this is the first, second, third. So you're going through that gap there. Pull that through. And then you're going to go back down through the gap between the first row and second row. Like that. Now you're going to go back through that first orange bead. Okay, so you're coming out here, so now you're going to move through the next orange bead and you're sort of going to do the same thing again. So if you hold it like this, you'll see where you need to go. So I'm coming out of this one, so I'm going to go through the gap here. So you don't want to be pulling your bead this way too much or that way. Just go up straight through the gap that's going to be right above it. So right through there. And back down the other side of that bead. Back into the one that I'm coming out of and the one after it. And keep pulling it nice and tight every time. So now I'm coming out of the third orange bead. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to loop around this row. Then I'll move on to the fourth and loop around this row and so on until I've looped, connected all this last row to the beige beads. So I've connected all those together. So at the minute it looks like this, and I'm coming out of the last bead in this row here. I'm going to connect all these middle ones together so they're not all separate. So I'm going to move into this next row. I'm going to move through 3 of those beads. Like that. And now I'm going to go up through the very center bead. I'm going to go through the very center bead in that top row. So I'm coming out of this one up here, so I'm going to go down through this center bead in the top row, so it's the third bead in that row. Like that, and now I'm going to go back into the row below. So I'm coming out of this bead and I'm going to go into this second bead in that row and the third, like that. So now we have this. So now I'm going to move down into the row below. So I'm coming out of this one, I'm going to go through the center bead. So there's only 3 beads in that row below, so you're just going through that middle bead and again back into those middle 2 in the row above. Now moving down through that middle bead in the row below, and this time I'm going to circle through, I'm going to go through the 2 in the row below, so I'm coming out of the middle bead in that row of 3, I'm going to go through both the beads in the row below, back into that middle bead in the row above, and back through those 2. So then you've just got that last single bead in that first row we added. So I'm just going to go through that, back through the 2, and now I'm going to go up into the row of 3 above, and I'm going to go through all 3 of those beads this time. Now into the row above through all 4 of those beads, and finally through all 5 in that top row. So now they're all joined together in the middle and they're not going to kind of move apart as much, so it looks a bit neater. Okay, so we're coming out of this bead again on the end of this row, so I'm just going to take my needle through this gap right here, and then I'm going to move up through this very top beige bead on the very end. So you should be coming out of this last beige bead on this back row. You're going to pick up 2 beige beads and go down through the next beige bead on the top row. So I'm coming out of this one, I'm going to move up through that next one on the top row. And this time I'm going to pick up 3 beads and go down through the next one on the top row. And then same thing again, I'm coming out of this one, I'm going to move up through the next one on the top row. And pick up 2 beads this time and go down through that last one on the top row. So you have this, and it looks a bit strange. So I'm coming out here, I'm going to travel down through the rest of that row, so I'm coming out the bottom of that first row of beige beads like this. So now I'm going to zigzag all the way back to the other end, so I'm coming out the bottom here, I'm going to go up through 2, down through 2, up through 2, down through 2, up. So I'm going to do that all the way along so that I'm coming out of the other end of this back part. So I've zigzagged all the way along, so I'm coming out of this side of this now, so you can go up through all 4 of those, that last row of beige beads. So I'm coming out the top of that last row of 4 beige beads, and I'm going to go through all of these beads that we just added. And make sure you pull that bit nice and tight. So now you have this. So we're coming out of here, you're going to move all the way down through these 4 beads on this corner. Okay, so we're at the bottom now. I'm going to move down through the 1 bead at the top of the row next to the one I'm coming out of, down through the first bead in that row, and then I'm going to move my needle through the gap between this row and this row, so right through there, through those top 4 beads, through the gap in between those top 4 beads. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing we did on the top, but starting with the 5 beads. So pick up 5 beige beads and go through that gap that's directly opposite where you're coming out of. And then move through the gap between the top 4 beads on the next row. Now you're going to pick up 4 and go through the gap on the opposite side, and keep doing that until you've added 3, 2, 1. Then it should look like this. Now you can join all those together nicely down the centre like we did on the top, but I don't usually bother with that just because it's the bottom. So if they move around a bit, it's not really going to matter too much. So now what we need to do is move back up to the top. So you should be coming out of that last gap that you went through, somewhere around here, it doesn't really matter. So whichever side you want to, move all the way back up to the top, so through the 2nd bead and then 3rd and 4th. So you're back at the top here. Now I'm going to move down through that single bead, down through the top bead on the row next to the one I'm coming out of, and then through the gap. Take my needle through that gap, and I'm going to go back into the first 2 beads in this row of 3. So you might have ended up in a different place to me, so if you have, just move backwards and forwards until you're coming out of that middle bead in that row of 3. Now we're going to pick up 2 of your white beads and go back into that bead that you're coming out of on the opposite side. Like that. Now I'm going to go up into the first one, picking up 1, I'm going to go through the next white bead. Like that. Now picking up my last white bead, I'm going to go back through the next white one. So we've made a little group of 4. Now I'm going to go through this bottom white bead again, and I'm just going to attach it now to the bead that it sits above. So you need to find which one it's sitting right above, and you're going to go into that bead and back into the white one, and do the same with the white bead at the top as well. So you're going to go into one of these beads that it sits above and back into the white one, and then we're finished. So once you've tied off your threads and tied some knots and cut your threads off, then that's the finished pumpkin slice. So this is what they look like. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you're able to make one of these. Let me know if you did, comment down below what else you'd like to see, and like this video and subscribe to see more of my videos, and follow me on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching everyone. See you next time. Bye.